All right, let's dive into a really fascinating document today. We're going all the way back to 1998 when a group of, well, really determined citizens drafted this pretty radical plan. See, they had spent years trying to get the US government to spill the beans on what it knew about UFOs, and after getting nowhere, they basically decided, fine, we'll do it ourselves. So this is the story of that plan.
And boom, right there, that quote really says it all, doesn't it? It's from CSETI's director, Dr. Stephen Greer, and it just perfectly captures this huge, dramatic pivot they were making. The message couldn't be clearer. If the government won't tell the public the truth, then we will. But here's the thing. This wasn't their opening move. Not at all. To really get why this was so radical, you have to understand where they started. We got to go back to their original strategy, which, believe it or not, was built entirely on cooperating with the government.
Yeah, for more than 4 years, CSETI was all about playing the inside game. They weren't out on the streets protesting. These were professionals methodically briefing senior U.S. officials, building their case piece by piece. The whole thing culminated in this landmark presentation to members of Congress back in '97.
And their plan, it was totally straightforward, really logical. Step 1, gather up the absolute best evidence you can find. Step 2, identify credible, top-secret military and intelligence witnesses who are actually willing to go on the record. And Step 3, take that whole package, present it to the executive branch, and convince them to make an official disclosure. Simple, right?
So they did it. They executed the plan, perfectly. They got the meetings, they presented the evidence, and then they hit a wall. A massive wall of official secrecy that was just way higher and stronger than they could have ever imagined.
And look, we're not talking about meeting with some low-level aides here. No way. CSETI's briefings were reaching the absolute highest levels of the Clinton administration. We're talking senior White House advisors, key Pentagon officials, the big players.
Get this, they even managed to secure a briefing for the director of the CIA himself, James Woolsey. You really can't get much higher up the intelligence food chain than that. And what they found out in that meeting, it was absolutely stunning.
So here's the bombshell from that meeting. According to Dr. Greer, the director of the CIA, the head of the entire agency, basically admitted he couldn't get his hands on the UFO information. He was locked out of the government's own ultra-secret black programs. Just think about that for a second.
Well, this led them to a pretty disturbing conclusion. They started believing that this whole subject wasn't being managed by the normal chain of command. Instead, it was being run by what they called a covert apparatus. Basically, a kind of shadow government operating completely outside the oversight of the president or even the CIA. And Congress, they weren't any more helpful. Despite all the briefings and the evidence laid out for them, the attitude seemed to be, not my problem. It was like a political hot potato that nobody wanted to get stuck holding. Everyone was just passing the buck.
Okay, so this begs a huge question, right? What exactly was CSETI bringing to the table that was so explosive? What kind of evidence did they have that was supposedly shaking up all these DC insiders?
Well, this was not just a collection of spooky stories. CSET was claiming they had dozens of high-ranking military witnesses, real government documents, photos and videos that had been independently analyzed, radar tapes. They even claimed to have physical objects of alleged extraterrestrial origin. They had built a really serious, comprehensive case.
And it wasn't just formal evidence. Their own fieldwork was producing some truly bizarre results. Get this, during one event, Dr. Greer's own compass, a compass he'd used for years and trusted, was permanently messed up. The needle shifted by almost 160 degrees and just stayed there. It was this tangible, physical piece of, high strangeness.
Okay, so let's recap. The government's not responding, but SETI is sitting on this mountain of evidence. This creates a huge dilemma for them. What do? What's your next move when all the official doors are locked shut?
And yeah, the obvious question is, why not just leak everything, Hold a big press conference, dump all the files, name all the witnesses, and just let it all out. Well, their reasoning for not doing that was actually pretty cautious and really strategic.
They really had 3 main concerns. First, and this was the big one, witness safety. These people were risking their careers, maybe even their lives, and CSET felt this huge moral responsibility to protect them. Second, they had to show they tried to do things the right way first, to avoid being painted as some reckless hostile group. And finally, they knew that a private disclosure would be super expensive, and if they messed it up, if it flopped, that was it. They'd have wasted their one big shot.
So after years and years of hitting these roadblocks, they finally made their choice. They decided to bypass the government completely. The plan was to launch their very own professional, civilian-led disclosure initiative, one that would be funded by and for the people.
And listen, this was no small plan. They were thinking big. We're talking a world news conference right in Washington, D.C., a multi-part documentary series on a major primetime network, companion books, educational materials, even a world scientific summit. They weren't just trying to leak a few documents. They were trying to create a massive cultural moment and just go right around the official gatekeepers.
And they knew to make this work, their credibility had to be rock solid. So they set incredibly high standards for what they would present. Their plan was to exclude anything that could possibly damage their case. So, no anecdotal stories or rumors, no unverified photos or documents, no secondhand witnesses, and definitely no wildly speculative theories. They were going straight for the jugular with only their absolute best, most verifiable information.
And you know, it's really important to remember the human cost here. This document, the one outlining this massive strategic pivot, is actually dedicated to their research director, Shari Adamiak. She passed away in January of 1998, just a few months before this was all published. It's a powerful reminder that this wasn't just some project for these folks. It was a mission that people were literally dedicating their lives to.
So in the end, this 1998 document is so much more than just a plan. It really captures this incredible moment in time when a group of citizens stared down a giant wall of official secrecy and said, you know what? We're just going to build our own door. And it really leaves us with this powerful question to think about. What happens when the people decide that official secrets aren't secret anymore?